Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the Cthulhu Dark Rules by Graham Walmsley. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to languages for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I'm your keeper normally, Keeper Michael, but today I'm going to be turning the table and the hand of fate and glory over to our storyteller in residence, Rina. So please take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rina. I normally play Lady Elizabeth on the Horror on the Orient Express campaign, but for today, I will be not your keeper, because today we are at the gates of Troy, following the Homeric story of the Iliad, and so I will be your muse for today. We'll be playing Cthulhu Dark, a scenario that I have written called Die Not Ingloriously, and I'm very excited to take you through this epic, or perhaps not so epic, adventure of ours. So to my right...
Hello, everyone. My name is Bridget, and I am the owner of Symphony Entertainment. I'm super excited to be here because not only is this like a top shelf group of people, I'm actually really in love with the classics, and Cthulhu Dark is one of my favorite systems. So I will be playing Zoe. She's 50 years old, and she is a priestess of Poseidon. She is 50, but guys, she looks so much older than that. She looks tired. She looks worn. She interprets signs, and she will perform certain rituals to try to determine, decipher, understand, translate the will of the gods. But there's something about her performance lately. It seems like a shell of its former self. It's like she's not 100% in the game. It looks like she's just barely pushing through. So whether it's a crisis of faith, or her age is finally catching up with her, or she's just really exhausted, she does the best she can for her troops, for her king, and for her people. But Zoe is definitely on the back end of super tired.
Yes, well, she's not going to get much rest tonight, I can tell you that. And to Bridget's right.
This is Lonnie. Today I am playing the role of Eulalia. I am a 29-year-old serving woman, serving under the court and the august presence of the king of Mycenae, Agamemnon, and my son has disappeared, so this is rather personal for me.
And it's going to get more personal from here, at the end of the table.
Hi, I am Miranda, and today I'm playing Leon, 19-year-old foot soldier, ready to prove himself and earn glory and honor on the battlefield.
We'll see if he manages to get any of that today. And to my left.
I'm Mike. Normally I'm in the keeper's chair, but today I am in the soul and body of Damon, a soldier who, while capable and still alive at the ripe old age of 35, he has come to a moment of disgrace in his life. And while he has pled madness, he is still seeking this deep redemption in the eyes of his king and in the eyes of the gods before he dies.
We'll see what we can do about that. Thank you all for joining me in this game. So I would like to go through a brief review of the rules for Cthulhu Dark for any of our listeners who haven't played the system, and also because there's some flavor text and maybe a couple other fun things I've added to the rules for this particular setting. So the number one rule in Cthulhu Dark is you are squishy. You are very squishy. Although we are in the age of heroes and of great deeds and of gods walking on the earth, you are not those people. You are normal people. So while Agamemnon may be able to stride into battle on his own, you cannot. So you are more than likely, almost certainly, going to die or have something far worse happen to you. So accept that, have fun with it, and just make it a good story. Die gloriously if you can. The second rule is, in conjunction with the first rule, don't fight the mythos. Because you are squishy, if you try to fight the mythos, you will die. Immediately. Horribly. There are no rolls. You cannot get out of it. You just die. If you stab a Shoggoth, if you throw a frisbee at the king in yellow, whatever it is you do, if you try it, you're gonna die. So keep that in mind. The third rule is all about dice. So you have your 3d6s. Those are the only dice that you are going to use today, except for Bridget, who's got a little extra thing that she can do that she might talk about later. So your first one is your human die. This is the die that you roll whenever you're doing something normal. Talking to an NPC, crossing a river, any of those normal things that people can manage to do. Your second die is your profession die. This is what you roll whenever you're doing something that's related to your job. So you'll get to roll 2d6 in that case. So Damon and Leon, for example, you're soldiers. If you're wanting to inspect weaponry to find some clues about it, if you're wanting to talk to other soldiers or do tracking, anything that a soldier would be able to do, you would get to roll 2d6 to add your profession. Your third die is your insight die, or in this case, we're going to call it your insanity die. This is more appropriate to the setting, I think. And so with your insight die, this is what you roll whenever you see something or hear something or notice something out of the ordinary, or that freaks you out, or that is beyond the pale of what mortals should see. So those are your 3d6s. When it comes to rolls, on a 1 to a 3, you get a little bit of something. So you're talking to an NPC, you want to know where Alexander went, this other NPC. The NPC might say on a 3, oh, well, I think Alexander went that way, but I'm not sure. You get a little bit of something. If you roll a 4, you get exactly what you asked for. Oh, Alexander went into that tent. If you roll a 5, you get a little bit extra. Oh, Alexander went into that tent, and I saw him arguing with someone about 5 minutes ago. So a little extra there. If you roll a 6, 6s are bad. If you roll a 6, you see past the veil. The gods reveal something to you that you were not meant to know, and you will have to roll your insanity die because you're going to see or hear something that you shouldn't. Maybe you notice this NPC's eyes are actually dark voids. Perhaps their mouth doesn't match up with the words they're saying. It's like there's a lag almost, right? Could be any of those things. Could be you notice that they're actually a Gorgon. Who knows? But either way, you'll be making an insanity roll for that. With that in mind, your insanity starts at 1. Everybody is already at 1. Please keep track of what your insanity currently is. Whenever you roll your insanity die, if you roll above your current insanity, it will go up by 1. All right, so you're all on 1. So Miranda, if you roll a 3, your insight goes up to 2. But Mike, if you roll a 1, it stays on 1. Whatever you're seeing, it's not bothering you for some reason. And you can explain in character why that's not bothering you. Maybe you're drunk, maybe you've seen worse on the battlefield, whatever it is. However, I have a bit of a house rule for this scenario, and this is called mania. If you roll a 6 on your insanity die, you are seeing too much. Not just something that you weren't meant to see. The goddess mania has given you some kind of look into things as they truly are, and you have a chance to lose more sanity. So you will have to roll again. So you have a chance of going up 2 points on your insight die if you roll that 6. Okay, so this will trigger mania for you. Other dice rules, one of them is pushing the roll, but in this game, we're going to call it hubris, tempting the gods, because you are attempting to change your fate. If you fail on a roll, you're talking to this NPC and you really need to know where Alexander is, but you roll a 2. You can push the roll by adding your insanity die. So this is your hubris here, where you are tempting fate. You are telling the gods, no, I'm going to get something out of this. And if your insanity die is higher than your regular die that you're rolling, your insanity will go up by 1. And you'll see a little bit too much there as well. So that is the concept of hubris. The last thing, which is my favorite, is the concept of fate. And in this particular situation, fate is very appropriate. If you, the player, think it would be more fun if one of your fellows failed in something, you you can choose to roll against them. I can also roll against you if I think it would be funny. This is the only time really that I will roll in this game. But it's not the character sabotaging the other character. So if Mike thinks it would be funny for Leon to not be able to flirt with this NPC, that is not Damon stepping in and tripping Leon and making him fall flat on his ass. That is the fates stepping in and saying, no, this was not meant to happen. It was not meant to be. So you can roll against each other, and whoever has the highest in that situation wins. So we have fate, we have hubris, we have mania. We have a lot of fun things in this particular version of Cthulhu Dark. So those are the basics of the rules. I hope you will have fun with that. If you have any questions about rules at any point during the game, please do let me know. I'll be happy to clarify anything. Are we ready?
We are.
I am.
Let's do it.
As ready as we'll ever be.
Let me at least not die without a struggle. Inglorious. But do some big thing first. Men shall come to know of it.
Hector to Achilles. It is the 10th year of the war against Troy. You have all spent a significant portion of your lives here on this battlefield. For some of you, it may be that you've grown up here, as it is for you, young Leon. For others of you, you came here already as adults, but you've seen all of your adulthood fade away, drowning in blood and fear and the actions of the gods and their children as this war drags on and on and on. When you arrived here a decade ago, you came with great hope of honor and glory and riches, as all the priests told you with great certainty the gods were on your side, that yours was a righteous cause. You were coming to take back Helen, the queen of Sparta, who was stolen away by Paris of Troy. And that because of this glorious quest, it would be a year, 2 years maybe, before the gods caused the walls of Troy to fall before you. And then it became 3 years, and then 4. You've all seen brothers, sisters, siblings, family, friends die around you in service of this fight between the gods and their children and their grandchildren. You have seen great things, it's true. You have seen your own King Agamemnon, the Lord of Men, striding tall amongst the ranks, taking out hundreds of Trojans with his spear, with no scratch upon him. You saw Achilles fight the river as it rose up against him, and he returned unscathed. You've seen Odysseus, the wiliest of men, fighting in a circle of Trojans, taking them all down without aid. But these great feats are assigned only to the demigods, the great ones. It is you, and your friends, and your family, die, who sacrifice their blood, who give their lives in this seemingly never-ending war. And lately, things have gotten worse. About a month ago, King Agamemnon took a war prize, the priestess Chryseis, priestess of Apollo. He declared her far more beautiful than even his own wife Clytemnestra, and he took her as his concubine. You all saw her father, the high priest Chrysis, come with cartloads of gold and treasure, begging the king to respect the sanctity of Apollo's temple and respect him as a father and return his daughter to him and to Apollo. And you all saw the king say no. And you watched as the priest stood in the center of your camp, raising his hands to the sky, rending his robes, and calling for the wrath of Apollo upon the camp of the Greeks. And that night the plague began. For weeks now, every night, you've heard the creaking of the plague carts as they rattle through every camp, even the camp of Odysseus, of Achilles, of Ajax. You've seen hundreds and hundreds of corpses taken away. You've heard the silence fall over the campsite. The singing dims. Miasma settles in, And still, Agamemnon refuses to save his people. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, the nightmares and the disappearances began. Every night, for the past 3 weeks, all of you, everyone in the camp of Agamemnon, and only the camp of Agamemnon, have had strange, horrific visions at night. You can't sleep. You can't breathe in the dark. Every time you close your eyes, you hear screaming. You see red mist. You see dark figures and shadows. Something is tormenting the camp of Agamemnon, but of course, not the king himself. He seems to know nothing of this. And every night, people disappear. One night it might be a soldier, another night 2 stable boys. Sometimes it's a lower servant from one of the lesser temples. 3 nights ago, Eulalia, it was your son, Callias, who disappeared. No one seems to know where they've gone. They've not been seen or heard from since. It seems the gods have abandoned you, despite the sacrifices, despite your pain, despite your cries. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And now, tonight, it has been a rare day of quiet with no fighting, no battle. Many of your camp appears too weak to stand as the plague ravages through, but at least it's been quiet. And the 4 of you, as twilight falls and the stars begin to sparkle in the sky, and you can smell the smoke of the campfires, you find yourselves in an antechamber of the Temple of Poseidon. You are seated in low wooden chairs in a semicircle. There is an altar, a small one, in the center of the room. There are tapestries depicting the Lord of Horses, the King of the Seas himself, hung all around the walls. And in front of you is seated Hilarion, the High Priest of Poseidon. He is a very tall man. He's taller than most of you, not as tall as the demigods, the children of the Olympians themselves, but still very tall. But he also looks gaunt. He looks as if something has half destroyed him. You can see his bones sticking through his hands as they clutch at his walking staff that he clings to, as if he's afraid he'll fall out of his seat without it. You can see his cheekbones almost cutting through his skin. His robes are long and blue, the color of the sea, embroidered with dolphins and horses. But they appear almost garish in this dark, half-lit room. And this poor, older man, his cheeks are flushed as he coughs, deep, racking coughs. He looks out at the 4 of you, and he says, "Thank you all for coming to meet with me this evening." And then he looks at you, Zoe, and he smiles and he says, "Not that you had much of a choice there, Zoe." He laughs. You've heard this joke every day for the past 10 years, but you pretend you haven't. And he looks back at the rest of you and he says, I must know, have you all been the dreams, the nightmares, have you? Damon, you feel his dark eyes almost burning into you. Somehow he's looking at you, and you're not looking back at him, but you know he's looking at you.
Damon probably keeps his eyes towards the floor because of the superstitions of his family, his people. To have nightmares and dreams are something that call him back to his last moments on the battlefield, and they deeply trouble him. And so he would lift his head slightly and say, "The nightmares have come and gone."
I see it on your face. Yes. And you, young Leon, what of you?
Indeed, I have dreamt at night, but fear of nightmares is for the weak. These are but dreams.
He chuckles a little bit, says, the audacity of youth. I remember it once, long ago. Eulalia, have they ceased since Callias disappeared?
They have not. They have not. They may never.
Let us hope that is not so. Zoe, I have not heard you complain. You never complain, of course, but are they plaguing you too?
The moment he asked that question originally, she just flinched, like a flinch went through her entire body. And every time someone confirms that they're having nightmares as well, she winces. And then when asked that question directly, she looks at him and there's a thin film of tears over her eyes, and she just bites her bottom lip and nods.
Hilarion nods again and he looks away quickly as if to spare you your dignity. And he takes another cough, this deep, racking cough. You can almost see his lungs struggling through his chest as he coughs. This is not a well man. And he says, I don't know why our Lord Morpheus brings these to us. I know not what significance there is, but I will tell you, we are cursed. I don't speak, of course, of this curse from Apollo, the golden-haired, that is between Lord Apollo and his priests, and Agamemnon, our king, and the others. That is not for us mere mortals to trouble with. But these disappearances, these nightmares, this is something else. Some god is angry with us. Perhaps you are aware that other camps are not experiencing these visions or the disappearances. I spoke to my counterpart in the camp of our Lord Odysseus. Nothing. Of our Lord Nicanor, nothing. Our Lord Ajax, and so on. Nothing. And that tells me either someone in this camp has angered a god, and they have unleashed wrath upon us, or someone has called upon a god to punish us. And he coughs again, and he's quiet for a moment, and he looks at each one of you in turn, holding eye contact as much as you will allow him. And he says, you're probably wondering why it's the four of you. And I will tell you, last night I had a vision. The same vision. The shadows, the screams. But this time I saw faces. I saw you. All of you. Emerging from the shadows. I have been given a sign, I believe, that you are chosen by some god looking out for us to end this plague, this curse. Perhaps it is your unique skills and connection to what has been happening, but you are chosen. 4 of you. Will you take it? Will you stop this? He looks at each and every one of you in turn. I can't offer you monetary reward, except the treasure when Troy falls, and it will fall. But I can offer you glory. I promise, he coughs again, I promise when you end this, I will take your names to Agamemnon, the Lord of Men, myself. I will tell him of your deeds. I will see them written down in the songs that will be sung of this battle. That is what I can give you. Immortality.
I sit a little straighter on the...
Yeah, I think I probably look up when he says the word immortality.
Mm-hmm.
And being the elder soldier here, I probably stand up and say, it matters not what happens to us, it matters how we react. We will cure this plague.
Yes, I believe you. Zoe, will you be the emissary of the gods on this quest?
The look on Zoe's face is so difficult to explain, but if she could disappear and run out of this room right now, she would. But she sniffs, she stands, and very formally and respectfully, she'll say, as I am summoned, I shall do my best.
Good. To start, you could speak to Iola. Her husband is the most recent to disappear. She came to the temple this morning to sacrifice great distress. Perhaps you could start there. Later, maybe, Eulalia, you would wish to speak to your son's comrades. Perhaps that will also help, but Eola is the most recent to experience this loss. Eulalia, you know the name Eola. She used to serve under you. She was a kitchen maid until she got married to a soldier about 6 months ago, and she moved out into the married person's quarters on the outskirts of the camp. So you know her, and you've met her husband, Leandros. So this is perhaps slightly disturbing news for you. He rises to his feet, Hilarion, and tottering on his staff, he says, I will make supplication for you to Poseidon, and he gently lifts and lowers his hands in a gesture for you all to go to your knees in front of the altar. And he slowly makes his way to the back of the room to one of these tapestries depicting Poseidon arising out of the sea. He pulls aside the tapestry and he pulls out a small wicker cage with a white chicken in it. And he carries the cage up to the altar. He takes out the chicken, he sets the cage down. You can all see that the chicken is very calm. It's not squawking or fluttering or trying to escape. Zoe, you know that sacrificial animals are often given some kind of herb to make them calm down and relax before a sacrifice, so that they don't try to run away. He holds up this chicken and he starts saying a prayer to Poseidon. And he takes a sacrificial bronze dagger, and he, in one stroke, slices the throat of the chicken, and the blood begins to pour over the altar. And he dips his fingers in the blood and sprinkles it onto each of your foreheads, chanting, "The blessing of Poseidon be upon you, the blessing of Poseidon be upon you," as he sprinkles this hot blood onto your face. And he lays the chicken out on the altar, and he slices open its belly with the knife, and he looks at you, Zoe, and he says, "Zoe, will you read the oracle for us? See what the gods have to say for your great adventure."
She winces again, but she will approach the altar and attempt to do this reading.
This is going to be 2d6. This is going to be a regular roll.
Got it.
So you're not casting knuckle bones. This is reading the entrails.
2 and a 3.
Okay, so you look into the chicken. A white chicken is usually considered a good omen, but inside the belly of this chicken, the liver is black. And you point it out to Hilarion, and he just sort of winces a little bit. He says, "Inconclusive. This tells me that you will make your own fate today." And he looks at you again, Zoe, and he says, "Do you wish to cast the bones, perhaps to ask the gods for more?"
Again, it's one of those moments, if she could disappear out of this room, she totally would. It's like, how, like, out of all the bad things that have happened, how did I wake up and end up in this bowl today? And she bows reverently and says, "With your permission." Then she'll reach into her robes beside the chicken, and she will attempt to read these knuckles.
Okay, so you're going to cast your knuckle bones onto the altar. Roll 5d4.
Alrighty. Looks like that sum came to a 14.
Okay.
Hopping over to the chart.
Mm-hmm.
So as she's nudging these knuckles around and she's looking at that black liver and she's looking at the blood, she will run her index finger across her forehead and just very gently lick the blood that is on her finger. And in almost like she's tasting a recipe, she'll look at the bones and she says, "If we persist in our struggles, after many trials, we will eventually succeed. There is perseverance through adversity. This is a crown that we can seize."
Hilarion nods, and he looks a little bit more relieved, perhaps, as he says, "Yes. I am grateful as always for your oracular skills, Zoe." And he takes a deep breath and coughs again. He says, "There's nothing more I can do for you now. I must rest. Go speak to Eola. Return to me when you have learned what you can learn, when you have dispelled this curse. I will be praying for you. I have set the acolytes to pray and light the torches. Yes, go with the gods. May your fates be glorious. And he turns and he totters out of the room, leaving the four of you with blood on your faces, a dead chicken, and some knuckle bones on the floor. You are alone. Twilight has fallen. What would you like to do?
We have some inquiries to make, yes. We have some sources of information to go and find, yes.
Yes,
Indeed. Does anyone know of this Iola?
I do. She worked in the kitchen for Lord Agamemnon when I knew her. She married a soldier and left the household. I guess it's her husband that's disappeared.
Very well. Would you be so kind to make introduction?
Yes, I can do that. I'm very, very reluctant to do that because I would rather talk to my son's friends, but I would rather talk to my son's friends without these people around.
Yes. You would know, and the soldiers would know, where the married person's encampment is for Iola's husband's unit. Each unit has its own part of the camp, so you'd be able to lead them there. Who is taking torches? It is dark out. All you have are the campfires, so who would be carrying torches?
Oh, I would for sure.
Ed, same.
I would
A
as
bigger
well.
torch than Damon.
Oh yeah, clearly. It's not about the size of the torch. Let's trust me.
All right, so would Zoe carry a torch, or would she leave it to the others?
Zoe will definitely be torchless.
Okay, as befits your station.
Exactly.
So Damon and Leon, as soldiers. Damon, you're old enough and experienced enough to be a swordsman, so you can have your sword with you if you would prefer. Leon, being a young soldier, you'd be a spearman, so you would have a spear and shield. Whether you are carrying them around the camp with you is up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely take my sword with me. My belief is that there is a redemption to be gained here, and it may need my sword arm to do so.
Does Leon have his spear?
Almost certainly.
So, we have a couple weapons at least. All right.
Never leave home without it.
Never. So you depart from the temple into the gathering twilight. You can hear, briefly, the sea lapping against the shore far off in the distance. You can smell the smoke of the campfires. You can hear the chatter of the soldiers and their families and the servants all around you, but it's quieter than what you've become accustomed to over the last 10 years. And you begin to hear the creaking of the wheels of the plague carts, the lowing of the oxen as they begin to move into the camp to fill out their task to take the corpses down to the shore for burning. And you hastily avoid looking at them to avoid bringing a bad fate upon you, to avoid the evil eye. And you can make your way through the camp carrying your torches. Mosquitoes buzz in your ears. The sand fleas nip at your ankles, but you barely notice them anymore after so long. Everyone who moves around you seems muted, almost. Quieter, sadder. They still talk. You can still hear the occasional musical instrument being plucked as someone attempts a sad song and then gives up. All around you is the hustle and bustle of camp at night as you make your way to the edge of the encampment.
Rina, may I ask a couple quick questions?
Yes.
These are things that Zoe would just kind of be mulling over in her head as they're moving through the camp. How long ago did the nightmares start?
The nightmares began about 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago, and the disappearances coincided exactly with the nightmares, the best that she can remember?
Yes. Same night.
Ooh, super bad. We're all gonna die. Okay, and then the disappearance, just from what she's heard from people praying for help at the temple and talking to the people that she has, are these nighttime disappearances, or are they just happening at all times during the day?
They disappear at night. People wake up and they find friends or family members have disappeared.
Okay. And from an astrological standpoint, did anything unique happen 3 weeks ago?
Nothing that you can remember other than the nightmares and the disappearances starting on the same night, which is a bad omen. But you can't remember any signs in the stars that night. But then again, the stars have seemed strange ever since Apollo turned against your camp. So it's a little hard to tell.
Oof. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Those are just things she's thinking about as they're making their way into the camp.
So as you go, are you moving in silence? Do any of you talk to each other?
I probably have blinders on at this point. I am very insistent on keeping a steady pace, partially because I want to get away from plague-ridden people.
Yeah.
And partially because I think as Damon goes through the camp, hearing songs and music from my brothers and sisters and others in battle start up and then cease because what is likely their hearts being filled with despair over what has happened is something I need to be away from, because we have something to accomplish. And so he's very much in that mode of, let's get on with this, let's get over this. He's seeking that change. And so I think that's where Damon's driving himself, and likely just speed walking or whatever. Like, he's probably, striding as long as he can to pick the pace so we can get to the glory part, because I'm tired of the death.
Valid.
I am steadily walking, but as I'm walking, I'm moving my torch from side to side almost unconsciously as I'm looking off into the darkness, hoping to see something. Hopefully it looks like my son. I have no expectation in my mind that this should be, but I don't know.
Leon would likely be not talking to Damon, but keeping pace with Damon, possibly even pushing the pace. I mean, I know he's good at running away from things, so I would probably just be kind of pushing him a little bit and glaring. Not physically pushing, but walking fast enough that he's trying to keep up ahead of me.
Excellent. So as you make your hasty way through the camp, you move through the main unit, and you hear all these people talking in hushed tones, and you smell meat roasting over the fire. And then you cross into the outer part of camp where the married people get to have their own little tents, slightly larger if anyone has children, but not the barracks that Damon and Leon are used to, with hundreds of soldiers all in cramped quarters. Each couple gets their own little tent for some privacy. And for this unit, it's a smaller encampment, let's say, for the married people here. But all of you notice when you cross over into this part of the camp, it's quiet. There's no smoke stinging your eyes. You don't see the blaze of any campfires, communal or otherwise. You don't hear soldiers talking to each other or house partners talking as they carry crockery and pour wine. You don't hear any movement, even. It's just quiet.
It seems too quiet out here. Has anyone else noticed that?
Indeed, it is quiet.
Everyone is in their tents.
Are there any signs of life?
All of you give me a human roll. Damon and Zoe, you're a little too distracted by how quiet it is, maybe, because you're not used to silence. Zoe, you're used to the hustle and bustle of the temple. Damon, you're used to all the loud noises from your fellow soldiers and the clanking of armor and all the swearing and all of that kind of noise. So it just kind of makes you feel uncomfortable. But Leon, being a younger soldier, and Eulalia with her keen ears, her keen servant's ears, you both pick up what sounds like crying. Yeah, you definitely hear sobbing coming from a tent further into this married person's encampment. And Eulalia, you in particular recognize that sound because you've heard it before. When Eola would break something, drop a bowl, or she'd burned the dinner or spilled wine on her tunic, she would let out this strange sort of hiccuping, sobbing sound. And it sounds like that to you, except stronger.
And really, that's why we don't miss her in the court, because, well, I heard that sound a lot.
You probably did.
But having heard it, I would move my torch that way and pick up my step slightly ahead of the soldiers. And I would say this way.
I follow along.
Zoe will very cautiously take up the rear. She's an older lady anyway, so she's definitely not about no hip scap and get at it. But the disquiet is weird for her, so she's intentionally kind of hanging back in any tents that she could just very quickly pop her head into, or she can get a feel or a read of the area. So she's joining. She's just intentionally being slow and bringing up the rear.
So are you actually looking into any tents as you go?
Yeah, she'd absolutely would, because this is not okay. This is next level not okay on top of 10 years of a whole lot of not okay.
And Miranda's just like, no, why would you do that?
You never look in the tents.
Never look in the tent.
So you poke your head into a few tents, Zoe. There don't appear to be any tents that you can see that would be large enough to indicate families, with children and so on. It just appears to be married couples, perhaps a married triad in one place. 3 beds in one tent. Give me a human roll. See if you find anything.
Alrighty. Oh, she found something.
It begins.
She found too much in the tent. Too much.
So it seems fate has made you curious today.
Yes.
Everyone else moves a little bit ahead of you as they're moving more quickly towards the sound of the crying, but you poke your head into a few tents. You see these married people's beds and things. Everything looks very neat, as you would expect from a camp of soldiers. And then you poke your head into another tent. It's about 2 or 3 down from where the crying appears to be coming from. Now that you're so close, all of you can hear it. And something looks odd in here. And you can't quite figure out what it is when you're just looking. Something isn't making sense. Maybe it's the dark, because there's no campfires here and the torches are a bit ahead of you. But there's shadows in here that shouldn't be. You see shadows for the beds, for the pitcher of wine. Then you realize there's a shield and a spear in here.
Oh.
Leaning against the tent pole. And you know that a good soldier would not leave their tent alone with their weapons in it. And then that has you looking past the spear and the shield at the shadow it's casting on the back of the tent. And you see what looks like the shadow of wings. These large, sharp, jagged wings silhouetted behind the shadow of this shield.
Wow.
And they appear to be moving. So I'd like that insight roll, please. Or that insanity roll.
Bridget needs one too after that. Great description. Wow. All right, I go up by 1.
Yep, so you are now up to 2 insanity. And you look at these wings that are rising up, these massive wings, and you see them flutter. And you shudder a bit, Zoe, and you blink, trying to get this out of your mind, and it's suddenly not there. You don't know if that's because the source of light has now moved and you can't really see shadows at all in this dark place, but there's no more shadowy wings there.
She will backpedal very quickly to the point that she trips over her own feet. She will land hard on her butt, gasping for breath. She will scramble out, and then she will very quickly try to catch up with the rest of the party. In all of those tents, not a single human, but soldiers left their gear, and there's the weird wing thing. Okay, so she's just going to very quickly scramble up to the to connect with the rest of the party.
Do you tell them what you saw?
Yeah, as soon as she comes up panting, she will explain, I believe something else is here. There's something else here in this area. The tents, they're empty, and there are shields and there are swords, spears still hanging, but the tents are empty, and I saw something moving, something winged it was there for just a moment, but there's something else here. Something is wrong. And she's not doing well, very obviously. She's usually very stoic, calm, and I don't want to be here. Something definitely got underneath her fingernails on this one.
Does the reaction from Zoe seem familiar? The rapid, perhaps the divine madness?
Yeah, to Damon, this feels uncomfortably close to you.
I'll reach out and try to steady her a bit. And Hellenically, I'm not sure about like physical touching, but if she doesn't reproach from it, I will just try to steady her with my hand a bit and say, there are many more challenges ahead, and we will see them together. Stay with us.
She'll blink, bite her bottom lip, and nod, but she won't give you any type of verbal affirmation.
Reunited, the four of you approach the tent. You can hear the crying much louder now, and there's a lot of just like squeaking almost coming from inside. It's just a simple tent, two-person tent it looks like, and you can easily push open the flap if you would like to. Are y'all going in with her? Are you going to stay outside?
You'll probably go in.
I think I might stay outside just to make sure nothing arrives, especially with this talk of a winged creature that may or may not have been seen.
That's a good idea, Damon. I'll take the lead.
Zoe, are you going in or staying out?
Zoe is going to go with the numbers right now, so it looks like she's going in.
Okay. So the three of you go in. We'll come back to you in a minute, Damon. But Eulalia, you're in the lead. And you walk into this tent, and the first thing you notice, Eulalia, as a trained servant, is it's a mess. It's very disturbing to you that she would leave her tent in such a condition. There's a pile of clothes on the floor. There's a shield and a spear laying on the ground. There's a pitcher of wine that looks like it's been slightly cracked, and there's a wooden cup of wine that has been tipped over, and you still see wine dripping onto the sand. And it's just a mess. You see, laying on the low bed ahead of you is a girlish figure, about 16. She's wearing a long white night dress. Her face is buried in her bed coverings, so you can't see it, but she's got long dark hair. It's unbound. It's not put up. So she is definitely not looking for visitors at the moment. And she is just sobbing as if her heart is breaking.
Aola. And I will approach and grasp her gently around the shoulders.
At your touch, the sobbing just kind of stops, and she sits up and looks at you wide-eyed. Her face is red. It's streaked with tears. Her eyes are red from crying. She clutches the blanket to her chest, and she looks up at you wide-eyed. She's, Mistress! Oh, Mistress, I didn't know you were coming. Forgive me, Mistress. And she just starts looking around her in absolute panic as she realizes you've seen her very messy home.
I will attempt to talk her down, as I have done many times.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. It's all right. We came as soon as we were told about Leandro.
You're looking for Leandros. Oh. And she looks up as she hears you say we, and she realizes there's two other people in here, and she looks at you slightly scandalized, Leon, because she's a young married woman in her night dress with her hair undone in bed. But then she notices you, Zoe, and she cries out, Your Eminence! Oh, I'm not worthy, Your Eminence! And she gets down on the ground and she just bows her head forward. She's just looking at you on her knees. And all of you can see now, she's got red, what looks like scratch marks on both of her cheeks across. And there's a little smattering of blood around them. And she's looking up at you, wild-eyed.
How did you come to be injured, child?
Injured? What do you mean, Your Eminence?
She'll take, her 3 center fingers and go across her cheeks and then kind of point to hers like, your face, darling, what happened?
She puts her fingers up to her face and touches her cheeks, and then she pulls them away, and Eulalia, you're sitting right next to her, so you can see the little touches of blood on her fingers, and she just looks at them and then looks up at you, Zoe, in confusion, as if she wasn't aware they were there. Eulalia, you can give me a roll. Give me a human roll because you're seated right next to her.
Sure.
I didn't know, Your Eminence. Okay. So with that 6, Eulalia.
Oh, Lord.
As you see Iola looking up in confusion at Zoe, you notice that there's skin under her fingernails. Perhaps these were self-inflicted. And then you lean back a little bit, maybe just as you realize what happened there, and you can see similar marks, similar scratches on the back of her neck and around the back of her shoulder blades and down the back of her arms, as if she was systematically clawing away at her own skin in places. So I'd like to have that insanity roll for you, please.
Oh, sure. Just a 5.
Well, you still go up by 1.
Yep,
but this is definitely disturbing to you, Eulalia, because self-mutilation is not something that people in your circles go in for. That's only adepts of particular religious devotion, perhaps for Dionysus. And she doesn't appear to be aware of it, and that's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, especially because the scratches on her cheeks look almost like she was trying to claw her own eyes out. Oh.
They definitely do.
I just visibly shudder.
You definitely look a bit disturbed there, Eulalia. So, Leon and Zoe, are you reacting to what you're seeing? Are you going to ask her anything? Are you looking around? What would you like to do?
I would definitely take kind of a cursory glance around the tent to see if there's anything, as they've been attending to Iola, to see if there's anything around that may have been missed.
Okay, so the first thing you notice, Leon, as a soldier, is that shield and spear. They're on the ground. Instead of hung up neatly to protect the point of the spear, the front part of the shield is face down into the sand, and it looks like they were dragged in here, but this is not the way a professional soldier would ever leave their kit.
Yes. Iola, have you done anything with with your husband's spear and shield?
Oh, she looks at you and she kind of blinks as if she's coming back to herself. Yes, so I was I was having the nightmares. You know the nightmares. And I couldn't sleep, and I was so tired. And 2 nights ago it was bad. I dreamed the shadow was, the shadows in the dreams. It was in the tent. It was like it was reaching for me, and I was scared, and I woke up screaming because I thought someone was in the tent. I didn't know it was the dream, and I was so scared. And last night I didn't want to go to sleep because I thought the shadow might come back. And she starts hyperventilating a little bit, and she calms herself down a little bit. And Leandros, he's been sleeping for 3 days. Every night. He says he doesn't have the dreams anymore. And so he said last night that he would stand outside and he would keep watch to make sure no one came in, so that maybe I could sleep because I would know he was watching. And so I went to sleep, and then I heard screaming and a fight, but I thought it was the dream, and I didn't wake up. And then I woke up and she just starts bawling. It was all my fault because he wouldn't have been out there if I didn't ask him to. But he'd been to temple and he wasn't dreaming, and I thought it would be okay because he was well rested, and it wasn't fair. And she just looks really. It wasn't fair. He can sleep and I can't sleep. So yeah, I told him he could stay awake for 1 night so I could get some sleep, and then he's gone, and and she points at the shield and the spears. They were on the ground outside the tent. He wouldn't leave them like that. He was a very good soldier, and so I brought them in so they wouldn't get rained on or something, and so I dragged them in, but I didn't know where to put them, and then I went to the temple, and it's all my fault. And she just starts bawling.
Leon has no time for this. I will let the others care for her. But I will pick up the shield and the spear, give them a glance over, and then also store them in a way that is proper and appropriate.
Okay. So while you're doing that, we'll switch back over to Damon, who was standing guard outside. Damon, give me a profession roll, so you can roll 2d6. You're standing out, you've got your torch, you're having a look around, maybe, see if you notice anything. Ooh.
Maybe I do.
Got a 6 there on the profession die. So, you notice, first thing, there are tracks outside this tent. Multiple tracks. You think you count 5 pairs of footprints, and then it looks like another set that's being dragged. You can see the marks in the sand with your keen soldier's eyes, where it looks like this person was being dragged away. So, as you notice that, you have a quick look around the rest of the tent on the outside to see if there's any other information you can gather here. And there's a little scraggly bush, you know, the kind of bush that you get on the beach when you're getting closer to the sea. It doesn't really grow leaves, it's just kind of pointy and annoying. But you see something glinting beneath it in your torchlight. And as you look at it, you feel this compulsion to pick it up.
Sure.
With a 6, you feel a compulsion.
Yep.
And you, in your curiosity, you reach down and you pick it up, and it's this bronze dagger. It looks like the sacrificial dagger that Hilarion was using in the temple, that kind of dagger.
Mm-hmm.
It's very sharp. You almost cut yourself when you pick it up because the sides of it have been brutally sharpened, and the point is like a needle almost. You feel like you could cut yourself just looking at it. And as you hold it and you look at it, there's a symbol on the pommel of this dagger. And it's an eye. But where there should be perhaps eyelashes, there's a mass of wriggling serpents extending out of the eye. And as I say wriggling, it's almost like, maybe it's a trick of the torchlight, but it's almost like you can see them writhing around in this circular symbol. And maybe it's just your mind tricking you, but you swear you can hear the hissing sound of serpents in the air. So let's have that insight roll, please. That insanity roll.
Seems I'm okay with this.
Yep. So you got a 1. So you managed to blink and shake it away for a moment, but you have a dagger now. What do you do with it?
Okay, so daggers, especially this type, are not going to be a soldier's weapon. They're more of a sacrificial implement as necessary. So I would probably return to the front of the tent. I would put it temporarily in my belt and then likely prepare to give it over to Zoe as she's in charge of all things related to the gods in my mind.
Okay, so you can put it in your belt temporarily and have a look at these tracks as they move off towards the main path. So back inside the tent, Leon, you were picking up the shield and the spear to put them up.
Yep.
As you pick them up, give me a roll with your profession, so 2d6.
Okay. Can do. Not much.
1 and a 3, all right. So you do notice that the strap on the shield is new. The shield itself is dinged up, the way you would expect from going into battle. It's been polished, but it's dinged up, but the strap appears brand new. So that's a little strange, but okay.
Maybe his last one broke. Just needed a new one.
Yeah, very possibly. And you can put the shield and the spear up where they won't be on the ground getting attacked by sand fleas.
Yes.
So Eulalia and Zoe, you've got a hysterical Eola with you. What do you do?
I pointedly look at Zoe in a manner of, can you say something to calm her down, please? And I will reach for the jug of wine and look for a sponge and something to bind these wounds with.
There's bits of cloth that you can use, and clothing and things. Not really a sponge in here, but there's cloth you could dip into the wine, and then use that.
Yeah, I will try and clean the scratches along her back and arms and shoulders.
You start cleaning the wounds. She starts sniffling a little bit, but she's still crying hysterically. Zoe
visibly rolled her eyes in the back of her head with that, hey, can you go mollycoddle this lady? Because Zoe's not really doing great herself, but she will do the priestly thing, as I say with air quotations that no one can see. She will approach and kneel very gently and attempt to talk Iola down, but it's not compassionate, it's not loving, it's not adoring, it's almost very clinical. And she will attempt to reaffirm with the story of the chicken and the vision from the priest that the four of us have been sent to remedy this. The gods, and she kind of winces when she says that, are on our side. It has been confirmed and ordained that we will find a solution for both these nightmares and the location of your husband. However, we need you to calm down in order for us to be successful in these endeavors.
Okay, give me a roll. You can add your profession to it. You've probably had to calm people down before when they come in distress to the temple. So roll me 2d6s.
Ooh, that's a 3 and a 6 on the profession die.
Okay. All right. So she looks like she's starting to calm down a little bit when you start talking to her. And then you mention the sacrifice, and then you mention the gods, and the gods are with us and directing us. Her head snaps up, and she looks at you, and her eyes look kind of manic, almost. And she just sort of hisses, "The gods are not with us. We are cursed. We are cursed." And she lets out this ear-piercing shriek that you can hear outside Damon. And then she starts rocking back and forth on her knees, and she's almost like she's chanting the curse, the blood of the innocent, the blood of the innocent. We are cursed. And she bows down into the sand and starts bowing back and forth. And she keeps chanting this about the blood of the innocent and the curse. And when she comes up looking at you, Zoe, it's her eyes, it's like she doesn't see you. They're wild, and her face is drawn. And then you realize she's bleeding.
Oh.
You look down, and there is blood pouring from her chest. And you see there's a tiny stone knife in her hand, the kind servants carry with them.
Oh.
And she has apparently made these deep cuts across her chest, and the blood is flowing, and she is rocking back and forth on her knees, the blood pouring down as she's looking off into the distance somewhere you can't see. So give me that insight roll, please.
Yeah, you're totally welcome to that one. Yep. Ooh, she maintains.
Leon, you're going to make an insight roll for this too, because you're seeing this. Eulalia, you don't see the blood because you're behind her, but you do have the unsettling screaming.
Not phased.
You are holding it together.
Yeah, I mean, hysterics and all this.
So am I rolling as well?
No, because you didn't see the blood yet, unless someone draws your attention to it.
I mean, I've heard her screaming before. That's nothing new.
I'll probably step into the tent at this point.
So Damon steps into the tent with torch in one hand, sword in the other. And Damon, you see this 16-year-old girl on her knees. Her gown is torn. She's sliced herself perhaps across the chest, these deep gouges pouring down. She's got claw marks on her face, and she is wild-eyed. And this looks to you like the grip of mania. So you're going to make an insight roll for that one.
Sure, you betcha. Yeah.
Like a boss.
So you rolled a 6 on your insanity die there, Damon. So that means that you're going to be gripped by mania yourself for a moment.
Oh,
It's okay, not the first time.
So as you look into this girl's eyes, as she's chanting something about blood, there's blood pouring down. You see in the flickering torchlight this shadow on the wall behind you. or behind her, and there's her head and her hair, and her hair appears to be wriggling for a moment. The shadows on the wall, and then you see these little heads of serpents, these shadowy serpentine heads flickering out, their tongues going in and out and in and out on the wall of the tent in the shadow of your torchlight. And you swear you hear them hissing. And it's so loud it drowns out the screaming for a moment, just this hissing of the snakes and this petrifying glance of these serpents in the shadows on the wall. So give me that second insanity roll, please.
You betcha. So I maintain.
You hold it together for the moment. You're still kind of gripped with this fear almost as you see the blood and everything. Sure. But there's work to do here. There's someone in distress. You blink and the shadows are gone.
I heard her talk about being cursed, right?
Yes. She was chanting it.
The tent floor is what?
Sand.
I will step forward, almost not so much caring that she's likely in the middle of bleeding out all over the sandy ground here. And I will pitch from my back. I will pitch the ritual bronze dagger at her feet and say, "It is clear she was cursed. This is her weapon of choice."
Three of you see Damon step in and toss a bronze dagger onto the ground in front of this screaming woman. What do you do?
Is this an accusation, Damon?
It is an omen, clearly. Found outside her tent, just beyond. There are tracks outside as well. Someone was carted off here.
Carted?
Yes, she said that her husband kept watch while she slept.
Obviously not well.
How is she responding to the bronze dagger at her knees or at her feet?
Interesting question. Give me a roll, Damon. Just 1d6.
Sure.
See how she reacts to this.
3.
She looks at it. It does stop her chanting, screaming. And she just looks up at you. And she looks back at the dagger. She says, "Is that from the temple?"
From outside your tent.
I've never seen it before.
I roll my eyes.
You can see she seems to have kind of snapped out of her madness. But she doesn't even notice the bleeding and the cuts and everything. She's just looking at you very confused. And he's like, "Well, that's what priests use, right, Your Eminence?"
And I'm glaring through her right now, sincerely considering doing something to trigger her to go back into mania, just so I can start asking her some questions she might actually be able to answer.
Dumb question. Do we know what temple she means when she says temple? Is there only the temple of Poseidon?
No, you would all know this. Every encampment has its own temple, major temple to the 12 Olympians. So, Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, etc. And there's also scores of little one-room temples called shrines around each camp for lesser gods or those who don't live on Olympus. So she didn't say which temple. She's just been saying the temple.
What temple did he go to stop the dreams?
I don't know. Makarios sent him and some of the others to, he said, the temple, but he wouldn't say which one. And when he came back from the temple, he slept that night. He didn't dream. But he said he was on a mission and it was all good and it was okay. And I asked which god, because if that god made his dreams stop, maybe they could stop mine, but he said I wasn't ready yet. He said one day, soon, he would take me to the temple, but that I wasn't ready.
Who is this Makarios?
The quartermaster for this unit.
And as you say that, it's like she suddenly realizes that she's bleeding, and she just looks down, and she looks at her hands, which are covered in her own blood. She's got blood pouring down her nightdress, and she looks up at you, wide-eyed.
Oh, please don't start screaming again.
And promptly passes out.
Oh, okay. Woo!
Glad she's gone.
She quickly looks at Yuleia and says, "Did your son stop having nightmares?"
Do I know this?
Give me a roll.
Probably not. I don't know.
Yeah, you're not sure. You do know with a 3, you didn't hear him calling out or crying out the couple nights before he disappeared, but you were taking herbs to help yourself sleep deeper at that point, and you're honestly not sure if you didn't hear him because he wasn't crying out, or if it's because your drugged sleep was too deep for you to notice it.
I don't know. But there's a temple that cures the... I would be shocked if no one was telling everyone about this. Such a rumor would go around like wildfire if there was a temple.
Unless those that spread the rumor disappeared before they could lay tongue to it.
I love that you're just having this conversation with this 16-year-old girl passed out bleeding
girl,
all
you're
over the floor. Yeah, like she's just on the ground, passed out, bleeding everywhere, and you guys are just standing there going, "Yes, no dreams."
I will wave at the 2 soldiers in a motion to pick her up and put her on the bed.
It's been a long 10 years, okay? And a rough couple months.
Yeah.
You ain't lying.
Oh, I guess I'll take the arms if you want to take the legs.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'll grab her legs and with Leon's help move her to the bed.
Yeah, so you can pick her up and put her on the bed.
And patch her up as best I can right now. I will also take the knife.
Eulalia, you pick up the knife and you see this symbol. This eye with these eyelashes made out of serpents, and you see them sort of wriggling sinuously in the torchlight, and you hear hissing in the back of your head, and it's deeply, deeply uncomfortable, and I'd like an insanity roll for you, please.
Oh, boy. Well, I'm at 3 now.
Okay, so you go up by 1.
Yep.
This is very, very wrong. This feels wrong to you. This whole room feels wrong to you, Eulalia. The crying, the blood, the chanting from earlier, this dagger with the serpents, whatever it is, this is very wrong, and you feel very uncomfortable in here.
I throw the knife in a corner. I just instinctively just toss it.
Okay, so you see Eulalia throw the dagger away into a corner. What would you all like to do?
Shall we continue?
This place is cursed. Let's get out of here.
Zoe will pick up the dagger that Eulalia just threw out, but after she picks it up, if she can, she would like to snatch the shield that's been propped up, and she's going to go outside, and she's going to attempt to do a reading on that knife and that shield, because she saw the wings coming off of a shield, correct?
Yeah, coming off a shield in one of the other tents. Okay, but first, you're going to see the symbol on the dagger, these writhing serpents around the eye. You didn't think I was going to let you get away with that one.
Touch all the mythos.
So you're going to give me an insanity roll.
Oh, Lord. Yep, she's going up by 1. This is a bad day.
Well, you keep touching everything.
True.
All right. So you can take the shield and the knife outside and sit down in the torchlight and have a reading. While you're doing that, are the rest of you leaving the tent as well? Are you staying in there?
Yeah, I'm not staying in here. I'm happy to leave the tent.
There's really nothing for us here.
Okay, so you all leave the tent. Zoe sits down cross-legged outside with this shield and this dagger. Zoe, I'd like you to give me first, before you do your bone casting, I'd like you to give me a human roll.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So you're not going to notice that, but you can give me a profession roll, so 2d6, because you've seen this symbol on this dagger now. And you saw the wings earlier, so see if you can figure out something. Okay.
So she got a 2 and a 4, but I am feeling my hubris right now.
Uh-huh.
This is more information than we've received in a long time. We're getting somewhere. There's a temple. Maybe this temple is causing the disappearances. You know, things are starting to fall to pieces, but also come together. So she's going to push it.
Okay, so roll 3d6. As in your hubris, you attempt to learn more.
Yeah, this character about to die so fast.
Oh, yes.
That is a 6 on the human, 4 and a 3.
Okay, so your insight doesn't go up with the 3, but with the 6, you look at this symbol, and something about it in connection with the shadow of the wings that you saw earlier strikes a chord with you. You've seen this symbol before. You know you have. And you can't remember where, and then you make yourself focus and almost kind of go into a trance.
Okay.
As you're thinking back. And you remember in your early days when you were studying to be a priestess, you were at one of the temple libraries. Yes. You found a scroll, a dusty old scroll in the back somewhere. It looked like it hadn't been touched for years. And you were curious, so you opened it.
Of course.
Yes, and you saw this symbol in this scroll. You remember it. This is a symbol used by a cult. A cult that you haven't heard of in a very long time. Not since reading that scroll, actually. You thought it was wiped out, that it was gone. But this cult was the cult of the Ironies, or the Furies. And you remember this symbol in particular was the symbol of Megara. Jealous rage.
Uh-oh.
You remember that. And yes, but that's just one of them. There's 2 more. What's this cult doing here? And as you're thinking about this and you're going through it, you feel a sharp pain in your finger. And you look down at the hand that's holding the dagger, and a small bronze serpent has bitten into your finger out of the symbol on this dagger.
Oh, God.
Yes. How about that insanity roll, please?
Listen, it is on the way. Oh, she's gonna die. All right. She goes up again.
Okay. So you see this small bronze serpent with its tiny bronze fangs sunk into your finger. You see these beady little red eyes looking at you. The rest of you hear Zoe give a short cry, and she starts shaking her hand, and you don't see anything.
Get it off me! Get it off me!
Okay. She's just wandering around outside the tent with this dagger and shaking it. Is that what's going on? Like, how bad is the freak out? That's what I want to know.
With this 2 sanity loss she took in the last 30 seconds, it's a pretty big freak out. She's very close to actually severing off that finger level freak out.
What's your insanity at now, Zoe?
4.
Okay. So remember, once you hit 5, you can start destroying evidence to try and make yourself a little saner, but not yet. So...
You imbeciles, do you not see it? Get it off of me! Get it off of me!
Is this the point where we slap her, or?
Yeah.
You want to try slapping a
Put her down
priestess?
next to the teenager.
That maybe not appropriate. There's nothing there. We don't see anything. There's nothing for us to get off of you.
As Leon says that, you're shaking your hand, Zoe, and the little serpent goes flying off into the sand, and you see it slithering away off into the darkness.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
Lord.
Is there some sort of
God.
contagion in that tent?
Oh God.
Muse, how many other tents are close to this one?
So the tents are in nice, neat rows, right? And so there is a row stretching out alongside this tent, and then there's a row directly across. And the tents are spaced about 8 feet apart. So there's tents on either side, and then tents across as well.
I think Damon probably mentally just considers the thought of burning the tent down, and then probably reconsiders it But he probably turns to it just momentarily with the torch. Not getting it too close, but just considers it. And then turns back to Zoe and says, "If you are done, we must continue on."
She wants to be offended, but she's just having a really bad day. So she just nods in agreement.
So, Damon, you have these tracks that you discovered that are leading into the main path between these rows of tents.
Yes.
You have the name of Makarios, who is the quartermaster, and you know that the quartermaster's tent is on the very edge of camp, usually. He gets one of the nicer, fancier digs, quieter digs, too, because he gives everybody their money. So, you have those two pieces of information. What would you all like to do?
We should stop with the quartermaster first, and then perhaps these tracks afterwards. And perhaps somewhere along the way we will get to the matter of your son.
That seems like a reasonable course of action.
I probably arch my eyebrows slightly at anything other than piss and vinegar from the other soldier.
Perhaps it is best if you talk to the quartermaster yourself and I talk to my son's friends. Speed the investigation.
Are we splitting the party?
Don't say it too gleefully.
So excited, ooh.
It works 100% of the time.
Yeah, but then there's only half of the stuff to touch. If you're with one group and not the other.
True.
Well, perhaps you are correct. Perhaps there should be a splitting between us. We can cover more ground that way, although we would be remiss if we did not send a right and sturdy soldier of arm with you. I point to Leon.
So yes, you mean me, obviously.
For truly, we will want someone at your back, one we can trust.
I should scarcely be in any danger, I think.
No, of course not. Women are rending themselves and bleeding all over their tents. This is common.
Illa's a high-strung girl. I am visibly annoyed at the idea that somebody would be accompanying me. But if he gets real insistent, then I will, in very ill humor, accept.
Yes, so Damon, then you will be accompanying her?
No, of course not. The younger soldier, this is your duty. Zoe and I will speak with the quartermaster.
And I will go talk to children.
You are closer in age. Probably turn and look at Zoe.
Zoe has zero arguments about this plan. None whatsoever. Bridget has a few. Zoe has none. Eulalia and Leon, when you do make your inquiries, ask about Eulalia's son and possibly his introduction to a religious sect, a cult. See if the names Megora or the Furies seems to ring a bell. This iconography I recognize from a long time ago. I think there's another religious presence here.
The rest of you know the Furies. They are important to Greek religion. You all know that the Furies are spirits of vengeance. They are usually called upon when great horrific crimes are committed and go unpunished. Actually, you all know that the Furies are associated with King Agamemnon's lineage, in fact, because his father killed his own brother's children and fed them to him. And so it's rumored that there is a curse on the entire family lineage, and that King Agamemnon's father himself was taken by a Fury. You don't know that for sure, but it's rumored. So these are vengeance spirits, and you would all know about them.
But I would only half believe them because, King Agamemnon spent time not being the ruler that he was rightfully supposed to be. Instead, there was someone else there, and then he took the throne back. So clearly he's favored by the gods.
So Leon and Eulalia are going back into camp to talk to Callias's friends. And Damon and Zoe are going to speak to Makarios, the quartermaster, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Yep. Correct.
So we'll start with Zoe and Damon. The two of you follow the main path through this campsite, and Damon, the tracks are going in that same direction. So it's almost like killing two birds with one stone here, as you follow the main path towards the edge of the camp, and it's still quiet. It is still empty. No one reacted to the screaming. There's barely a breeze ruffling the sand in your hair. It's very eerie as you move through what's left of this campsite. And then you get to the very edge, and the tracks split. The dragging and several of the footprints keep going off out of the camp. And two sets of footprints turn upwards towards a larger, more well-appointed tent. A tent you recognize as that of Quartermaster Makarios.
I will point out the tracks to Zoe, but yet continue towards the quartermaster's tent.
She'll follow.
So you make your way up to Makarios' tent. Tent is perhaps a bit of an understatement. His is a bit of a more permanent structure. It's wood with canvas. It's much larger as well. It's got an actual door made out of wood. There are these wooden slats. And as you go up to the door, you can see bright light blazing through the cracks in the door. Very bright light.
Would the quartermaster also have some sort of... is it common for him, I guess, would I know, to have some sort of weapons forge or a balefire or something like that going? Is that common?
He would normally have his own fire going inside his home, especially if he's staying up working on paperwork or any of the other things that a quartermaster would normally do. So the fact that there is light on itself isn't strange. It's the fact that no one else in this part of the camp seems to be around.
Yeah.
But his light's on.
Yes. Probably give half a moment of pause at that. Probably at that thought that everything else around here is dead quiet, and yet there is some roaring fire going on inside this tent that seems very strange. So I think Zoe would probably see Damon just put his right hand towards the hilt of his sword, not necessarily preparing to draw it, but make sure that he knows where it's at in case there are anything else untoward inside the tent. And then he'll reach out and pull the flap aside if it's covered.
Yep. So you can pull the door aside, and the first thing you notice is all of this light and the smoke. It makes both of you kind of cough and choke a little bit, how much smoke suddenly comes billowing out towards you.
Wow.
And then after a few seconds, you coughing and choking, you kind of get used to the light and the haze of the smoke, and you realize that why it's so bright and smoky is the candles. There are literally hundreds of candles on the floor of this tent, and they are set up in some strange pattern. It looks kind of like, almost like interlocking circles, but making angles, and they don't quite fit. Your brain cannot comprehend how these candles are set up. And then you follow the pattern of these candles towards the center of the room. And there's an open patch with no candles on it. And you see a patch of something in that circle. And there's something dripping. And your eyes follow the dripping upwards, and you see a man. Or what used to be one. He is stretched out above the ground, face down. His arms are outstretched, his legs are outstretched. He's maybe 2 feet off the ground. He's completely naked. His head is down. He looks like he's been horrifically, brutally tortured with cuts and bruises and scars and burns. And then you realize how he's hanging off the ground in this way. His spine has been split open.
Ugh.
And his lungs have been pulled out of his back. And there are hooks through his lungs attached to ropes hanging from the top of this tent. And then you see the lungs move. And shall we leave it there for this evening?
Yeah, that's a wonderful place to stop it. So thank you all for joining us for this first of a two-part series, as we likely, in very short order, will go absolutely nuts. But in a good way. In a good way. And thank you, Rina, for giving us so far a very descriptive story, which I am enjoying a ton of. Thanks to Bridget for joining us, for Lonnie and for Miranda so far. This has been absolutely fun, and I can't wait to get back to the next one.